Ladies and gentlemen, from the depths of flyover country in the heartland of America, the Kansas City on the other side of the mighty Mo, welcome to Hittin the Bricks with Kathleen, the do-it-yourself genealogy podcast with your questions and her answers. I am John, your humble hubby host, and today we'll be diving into the Hittin the Bricks digital mailbag. There's a lot to get to, so let's start Hittin the Bricks. So I'm here today with my guest.
I'm your guest today.
You'll be my guest today. I have questions because I have questions on this mailbag thing.
The mailbag thing, John?
The mailbag thing.
What's the mailbag thing?
The mailbag thing. You have answers, I have questions.
Okay.
Okay. We'll do it in this order. I'll do a question and you do an answer. Or we can do it the opposite way. If you want, you give us an answer and then I'll say what the question was, like the old Johnny Carson show.
No.
Ooh.
You're dating yourself, though.
Mm-hmm. Dude, my face dates myself. I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so the question is, first off, why are CCC records suddenly becoming such an important genealogical resource? But my question is, what is CCC?
I knew you were going to ask that.
There we go.
What is CCC? So the CCC is the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Okay.
And it was a very fun time.
Fun? Okay.
Between World War I and World War II. For genealogists, it was a fun time because it kind of bridges that time frame for a genealogist. It's a great way of finding especially your male ancestors, but really a little bit about your whole family.
Why is that?
Because the CCC was that Depression era recovery. All these young men who were hired by the CCC, they were working, but they were hired by the CCC. It was such a great program to boost America. It produced a lot of records. There are applications which named their parents or next of kin, where they worked, their age that we didn't have necessarily before, what school they attended. And there were all kinds of really fun camps that we didn't know about. It's like the Forestry Brigade. So it really wasn't a brigade at all, but these guys, they were going out to the forest, they were clearing the land or whatever was needed. There might have been 20 or 25 of them in a camp, and their whole job was to work in the forestry. And they also sent with them a nurse or a trained person for medical.
Was that something that people would relocate in order to participate in, or? Well,
it's interesting because when they were doing it with their camp, the idea was to send money back to your family. So you'd make about $30. $22 of that was supposed to go back to your family.
Okay.
And then you only kept the rest of it because your food and home is all paid for. But a lot of people fell in love while out there. So that explains why they got married while they were, and why they settled where they were versus going back to the home place. They had dances, and a lot of this is in newspapers.
So the CCC community might have started out as an external community coming in to a nearby community, and then they kind of melded with the existing community there?
No, they started with your community. So let's say I was in Michigan, just because I'm on a Michigan kick right now.
Okay.
I'm in Michigan. A bunch of guys join the CCC there. Mm-hmm. They go out. There's a camp created. Mm-hmm. Some of them were integrated. Mm-hmm. And they would go and do whatever job they had to do.
Right. And
they might have been from 4 different counties in that Michigan area.
Okay,
it's like a little small military. Think of a small state type military as far as recruitment is concerned.
It's sort of like a militia for doing conservation work, though.
Exactly.
So where should you, if you think your ancestor might have been in the CCC, where do you start your research?
Locally. I was started with just the local records because it's in, like I said, the newspapers were reporting back. Some of these kids were as young as 16. They were supposed to be 18 or 19, but some of them were very young, and the parents were watching the newspapers very closely.
Now, this was an FDR program, yes?
Yes.
Okay. That's just making sure I got my timeline right.
The Great Depression was like 29.
Yeah,
Okay,
the crash was 29, and then obviously 33 would be in the midst of it. And so newspapers, local resources would be your starting place.
And a lot of those small historical societies kept a lot of records. Not records, they kept clippings, or they kept information, their letters everywhere. We also see it in state archives. State archives is a great place to research. But I have to tell you that my favorite is the National Park Service.
Okay.
Because the National Park Service has an archival collections group. And within that, it tells you where to go in that region they might have collected the data. When I was in Rutherford, North Carolina, I was looking just for this. And this is several years back. And I went to a little small community college, again, because they had an archival group. And it was called the Isothermal Community College. It was in like Spindale, North Carolina. Close to that is Cott County. There's a National Archives there, the Smoky Mountains National Archives. But the Smoky Mountain Archives had a lot of information for me, and I was able, between the community college archives and the Smoky Mountain, pinpoint my person.
Because they were involved in this in a conservation camp, or
they were involved with the CCC.
Got
it. Every state doesn't have a National Park Service archive.
Okay.
Kansas being one, by the way.
Kansas has one?
It does not. They have the National Park Service manages other places like Nicodemus and different historical sites, but they don't have a real National Park Service archive.
So when I'm doing my research, my local research, and I'm looking in these places, do you have any tips for what I should do, what I should search for?
So one of the things you were search for is, of course, the camp itself, right? If you knew what camp they went to based on newspaper articles. You're looking for conservation camps. You're looking for keywords like soil conservation camp. You're not always looking for CCC.
Okay.
It's often by the action versus the organization.
Oh, interesting.
So, and some of them had all of them had camp numbers. You could also search by the camp number.
Okay, so another area that seems to be a big deal is the Virginia Revolutionary War land record digitization projects.
That makes me smile.
Why?
Smile
why
on
is?
my face.
Oh my gosh! I know. I'm just. Why do we care so much?
Well, first of all, during the Revolutionary War, Virginia had the largest reserved land acreage. And so they were the largest granting state. And we want easy access to those records.
So this is like bounty land?
It is bounty land.
Okay.
It is like bounty land, but it connects us from the military service. The bounty land may have come way later. It may have not even been claimed by the soldier, but by his widow or by the heirs. And John, I talk about this in our upcoming book. And the name of the book is?
Behind the Uniform.
The name of the book is Behind the Uniform. Every soldier has a story.
You might want to read up on that, huh? It is your book.
But we talk a lot about these land records in that book and how to research it, because this is an overlooked record set. People find a bounty land, they find it through the BLM GLO, which is the Bureau of Land Management. They find it there, they're all happy, and they stop. There's so much more to it.
And so that would follow, because I was going to ask you what sort of mistakes do I need to watch out for when I'm researching those land records. So that kind of falls into that is, one, don't stop at when you find the bounty land certificates, right?
That tells you a fact. It tells you right that moment when they applied, what they applied for. It even can tell you who were their neighbors, because you can play with that database. But there are so many more records that go with the land records. So after you find your ancestor in, let's say, these Virginia records that are just now released, it makes me smile.
Yay. Yes.
There are treasury warrants, there's surveys, there's plat maps. I love those because it gives you a little more sense of why your ancestor moved. An example is when a river runs across their property, one state being North Carolina, the other state being Tennessee, and you find them on the other side of the French River. But that is an example. But in Virginia, you see how they were doing it. So you're looking at these land plats, and it kind of explains even how they changed states. That's my point, because Virginia also became Kentucky and part of Ohio. So
as they carved it up, you might start out, I would assume that you might start out with bounty land in Virginia and then have ended up with bounty land in Tennessee.
Or you're living in Tennessee, actually.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is that you get a plot of land that's considered Virginia, but then at a certain point you're actually living in, because the border changes.
Now, that's one scenario. Another scenario is that they actually gave the land in different states. So it's possible that you fought with Virginia, but you got land in North Carolina.
Oh, yeah. My idea was that you got bounty land in Virginia, the borders changed, now you're in another state.
Exactly.
Or that you got bounty land in the state of Franklin, and then there's no longer a state of Franklin.
I don't think Franklin had any bounty land.
They didn't have any bounty land?
I don't think they did. However, that land did end up being part of the Western expansion. So, yes, I mean...
let's see, what other records should I be looking for other than plats and treasury warrants?
You have the patents, of course, but you also have a tax list. Tax lists are great because they're generational. They're almost every year. And you can see when a boy turns a certain age because now he's accounted for in the tax list. As he might be living enumerated right under his father's name. And that helps you place a family together. So there's so many things that we use all of the records to reveal a full family unit, especially the John Smiths of the world.
Yeah.
And deed records cannot be overlooked. And probate and wills also, because they all hold the description of the land. When I was working with a Thompson family, that's how I could tell one Thompson from another in Kentucky, is by following the land description, because there were way too many Thompsons and they all had some land out of Virginia. And so I can trace them by that land description, who bought it, who sold it, and using the bounty land records was the original set in Virginia.
Yes, indeed. So a good reason to be excited about these new documents, newly digitized documents.
Yes.
Not the new documents, the newly digitized documents.
They're not very new at all.
Okay, so something that is a little bit more recent then, because again, people are excited, or at least I hear they are.
They are.
They are. There are a lot of parties going on that I'm not aware of, and one of them has to do with the release of the 1926 Irish census. And why are people so excited? Why are they having parties?
This is the first 100% free state census in Ireland. Up to this point, they were in civil wars. They were not free. It's very exciting. It is already digitized. It was released in April of this year.
Oh, okay.
Americans can access it by going right onto the National Archives of Ireland, and I'll put up the link, and you can search for your family members. Now, I've played with it because I have County of Roscommon ancestors, and I wanted to see if they were in there, and they were born around that time frame. And I was able to find my own family enumerated in the 1926 census, just playing with it the other day. So that's why I was excited by it.
I would go, but I don't think I have any Irish in me.
I don't
Not like
think
that.
You do.
No.
I really don't think you had any.
I have some friends that might, so I guess the Moriartys should check into that.
They should check it into that, especially if they are Catholic, and they were from one of these free states. Most of them, 92%, were Catholics. And but it is, again, it's something the researchers should pay attention to. Just because your family wasn't Catholic, they might be part of that other 8%.
Since we're on that would be fun to find out. But what else and how can American-based descendants and genealogists use that census? And is there any overlap with the 1926 Irish census and the 1920 or 1930s U.S.?
I don't know if you would call it an overlap, but the way I use it is, as I'm looking at this census, if you have family who came to America, how do you know if some of them did not stay in Ireland? So now I would look at passenger lists. I would look at naturalization records to make sure I'm working with the same family if I can. Sometimes those intent declarations in the passenger list tells me where they were born. Mm-hmm. Church records. The church records are excellent. I would look at that. And what you can do now is tie your American Irish back to the county they were from in Ireland and find the rest of the family.
The release of the Irish dates, that has to do with the privacy?
That is correct. They do work on a 100-year privacy law before releasing. In the United States, we have a 72-year rule. And so although we have a census released every 10 years, it's way back when. That's why we haven't had the 1960 release yet.
Right. But I think the last one was in 1950, wasn't it?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting that is that this is the first opportunity, and golly, you get it fully digitized and released online for free. And it covers quite a few households, 700,000 household returns.
Yes, it's a regular census.
Well, then, okay, so they released the digitized census because it was their time to do that, and they could. What was the deal with Virginia, with the bounty warrants being released or recently digitized? Is that just, hey, we got these things digitized now, so dive in?
Okay, John, in Virginia, that digitizing project that they just completed and now we have access to, that was to celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence. Everybody did different projects, and that is one of theirs. Missouri Humanities has done projects. Everyone has done something to celebrate, it seems like.
Okay, and then finally, the CCC, you've used that before. That's not a new one, is it?
Oh, gosh, no. I have used the CCC since I started genealogy. One of my first projects was a large project, and the CCC records is what made me actually excited about brick walls, because it gave me this story. It almost outlined what the client was looking for, and now all I had to do is go in and dig on each one of the topics, like the employment topic, the community, the land. All of this was in the CCC project, as well as not only his parents that I found, but I also found his uncle and aunt who he was being raised by.
That's really neat.
Yes.
All because of the record keeping at the CCC.
Yes. And yeah, because now I knew to go to the guardianship records, or why were this guy not raised by his own parents? And so it just brings up all of those questions, that curiosity that I always talk about.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of fun. Those are good questions.
I thought they were good ones. So, yeah. John, these questions were submitted by our listeners. I had talked about the CCC in our last podcast, and I think I put something also on the blog on it, and I'll write more on that. And so they had questions for me. And then the second one on the Virginia bounty land, they were like, well, we have abstract books. What about the abstract books? Why do I need to look at this? Well, we always want the original. We want to know who actually claimed it. They purchased
as opposed
it
to,
outline.
Okay, you're saying the abstract book. What is that?
So we can go to a library and somebody has gone through these files already years back, and they've made an index and they put names in it.
Oh, so the abstract is just a summary.
It's just a summary. You want to look at the originals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because the original might also tell you it was in his name, but it was his widow who claimed it because he was already dead. Or it was in his name, but his heirs claimed it. And now I learned that there's a brother and a sister, and I get their names.
So, again, don't do the Cliff Note version, which would be the abstract.
Right.
Do the real reading.
You got it. You sounded like a genealogist, Sean.
Nah, just a teacher. Real cool stuff. Great questions. Your answers? Meh.
You're horrible.
Well, congratulations, you made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for staying. Thanks for taking the time to send in your questions. And thanks to Chewy Chewbacca Brandt for his unwavering lack of interest in anything we're doing. Thanks to you, listeners, for tuning in, downloading, and subscribing. The theme song for Hittin the Bricks was written and performed by Tony Fistknuckle and the Kidney Stones. Watch for the next appearance at an emergency room near you. Do you have a genealogical question for Kathleen? Drop us a line at hittinthebricks@gmail.com and let us know.